Hey!
Hello!
How is it going, Brittnee?
Really great, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm very honored to have you today for the beginning of a project that's dear to my heart, that is really about creatives in Toronto and how they became artists. To start in introducing yourself, can you just tell me a little bit about who you are, where you are coming from, and what has shaped you for who you are today?
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for having me. I'm really grateful to be here.
My pleasure.
So, my name is Brittnee Habbib. I'm a Toronto artist. You know, I'm a director, a producer. I was once upon a time a Canadian national gymnast for Canada. So that's what kind of pushed me into dance as well. I'm a storyteller. I believe in sharing very important messages with this world. And with that, that's the birth of all of my work.
Did you grow up in Toronto?
Born and raised in Toronto.
Yeah. What about your parents?
They were born and some of them raised. My father was raised in Jamaica. My mother came here when she was 8 years old.
Wow.
So both my parents are Jamaican. My father's a Syrian Jamaican.
Ooh.
So that's a very interesting mix. That's where I get Habib from. The one, my name, I don't think Brittnee is very cool, but Habib is kind of cool.
I think Brittnee is cool too.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good combo.
Thank you.
When creativity became part of your life, you are talking about when you were gymnastic. Is that something that for you, you called yourself a creative at the time, or it's something that built over the years from that background?
I would say when I was a gymnast, absolutely not. I was absolutely not creative. I didn't know I was, but creativity always lived inside of me.
Yeah.
When I was a gymnast, it was very robotic. You know, doing gymnastics is very still and stiff, and you have to have these movements that are so rigid. And to me, creativity could never be built in that. But furthermore, I didn't know myself when I was a national gymnast. So I didn't know what I loved, what I enjoyed doing. I didn't know that movement would mean so much to me. And once I started learning who I was and accepting who I was, movement started coming into that picture. And it started with dance, but I mean, I am a visual artist. I knit, I draw, I paint. There's so many elements to me. I'm walking creativity. And that was all something I had to discover once I finished gymnastics, which is really interesting. After my national years, I got a full scholarship to the USA. So once I came back from university and graduated, creativity started trickling in. My sister owned her own company, and it was all about creativity, music and arts and all of these beautiful different things. So I was the producer for her company, so managing artists. So I was in the field, but I wasn't really dabbling myself yet. And once gymnastics was done, I want to say maybe I was 20, 21, 22, I took a dance class. Had no idea what it was going to be like, and I will never forget, it was an African ballet dance class with Ballet Creole. I'll never forget hearing the djembes, and I was like, what is that sound? And I just felt something inside of me, and that was the birth of absolute creativity within me.
So would you say that was what was the pivotal life experiences that led you to take this route, or something else?
Dance was always a part of gymnastics, but it was really a certain type of ballet, a very Eurocentric type of ballet. You know, 1, 2, I had Russian coaches, and so I always did dance, but I've never done dance where I could feel it in a different way. So that transition for me, taking that Ballet Creole class and hearing djembes live for the first time in my life and seeing movement go to those drums, it drew me in closer. And then that, I think it awoke something inside of me to push deeper. And it was from that class I started taking more class and seeing things a little bit differently. For one thing, my culture, and that's a huge thing. I mean, growing up, I always knew I was different. I always experienced racism and discrimination being in that Caucasian, white dominated gymnastics field. And I always knew I was different. I knew I was Black. I knew all those things, but I didn't fully understand, and I didn't understand my culture. So taking this dance class and learning about what a djembe means, where it comes from, understanding my ancestors, starting to understand the idea of spirituality shifted everything within me. And then I started learning who I was as a person.
Can you just touch a few points about what this dance company is about?
The type of dancing that I would describe it as is African contemporary ballet. So it's like the mix of that Eurocentral ballet that's in there, but we're dancing live to djembes, to drums. And the positions are just, a little deeper, a little bolder. And it's not as rigid in the sense of, just using your feet. Your body's moving, and you're starting to understand how circular motions also have a deeper rooted meaning within life, within spirituality, and within dance.
So with the different experiences that you had, experiencing discrimination within that industry, at some point, did something connect between your art practice, your creative journey, and your healing journey?
Thank you.
Is there any parallels between the two, or things that connect each other?
Yes.
Around that?
I'm going to say absolutely. And I started with my work is about sharing important messages, standing up for justice, injustice, not being afraid to tell someone this is wrong. It absolutely connects, because once I was starting to be aware of how I was being treated and, the prejudices that was happening within the sport, I was able to kind of transition that into my dance and tell my stories through dance, share messages through dance, and to be able to just explore in a different way and allow people to see things in a different way that I feel is also beautiful.
Can you share a little bit about how, from being a national gymnast, you became a coach?
Coaching was always a part of my life. While I was training, I was still coaching. Once I was an elite athlete, even doing choreography for other individuals. And coaching has always been a part of my life, and it's always been a passion. It's been a passion because when I was an elite athlete, I was not treated well. Nobody understood me. Nobody understood my culture. And I just never felt understood. So I always knew I wanted to coach young Black girls. And then that was the birth of Girl Powered. And so Girl Powered essentially is a gymnastics and a dance program that's really meant to build self-esteem and the self-love for young girls who identify as Black. And just creating a beautiful hub, a beautiful space for young Black girls to love themselves and to flourish. Gymnastics is really taught from a Eurocentric way of coaching, and there aren't many Black girls who do gymnastics because it's so expensive and our bodies are shaped very differently. We go through puberty a little bit sooner. We mature a little bit differently. And so a lot of people see these beautiful Black girls and right away they're like, nope, she could never be a gymnast. Look at her breasts, look at her bum. The body is shaped differently. And I'm a pretty big busted person myself. So from a young age, having big breasts and having people look at me and question me a certain way, I needed to be able to create a space to understand Black bodies so that I can teach Black bodies. And I'm biased. We're phenomenal. We're fantastic. If you look at all the best gymnasts in the world, they're all Black. The USA, Simone Biles, if you go to the NCAAs, if you look at every top school, it's a Black girl. So just creating a space for Black girls to be phenomenal, and for me teaching other coaches, how to coach Black girls has been something really beautiful and dear to my heart.
And it seems like a big aspect of doing this has a lot to do with connection and safety as well. As I'm anticipating that holding a space for young Black girls they relate to each other more. They are also feeling safer because they are feeling recognized.
Absolutely.
And also still managing to treat them as an individual.
Exactly.
Right?
And exactly like what you said, that safe space. You know, when young Black girls are in a space where they see mentors that look like them, they see leaders that look like them, they met an elite athlete who's been to the top, they see it's possible. So the way that they're learning, the way that they're taking in the information is coming across so different now.
We have covered a little bit about your journey as a gymnast. And now I would love to know more about Brittnee as a dancer.
Yes.
So can you just share a little bit about from the origin of when you started taking classes to how you became a dancer, but also a dance filmmaker?
Right. It's been really beautiful to be able to work with so many different individuals within the Black community, you know, starting to expand as a freelance dancer and audition for different people. A very important person I have to mention is Arsenio. He does this Afro-Cuban, modern, contemporary dance class, and he really pushed my boundaries in a very professional way. That dance style is so challenging, but I really loved it, and I was able to see really what my body could do in dance. And so from there, I continued with auditioning and got to be a part of, you know, Obia Opera by Nicole Brooks, which was in the fall for Dance North Festival, and being on a stage at the Sony Center. It's just, you know, a sold out house. It felt beautiful. And it came to a point where I thought, you know what? I've been a part of so many other choreographers and dancers' story and bringing their productions to life. It felt like with the hub I had with Girl Powered, how about I start to bring my own story to life? And that was really how I kind of got into creating this film. And I thought, what not better way to introduce myself than to introduce my story and share that with the world.
So now can you actually give us a little bit of that story without obviously giving the whole film, but more about how you came to create this movie?
Yes.
From your life experiences
Yes.
and the journey it took you to get there.
Yes. My story that most people don't know, it's a very deep and can be dark and can be triggering story. You know, I've been abused. I've been physically abused. I've been sexually abused. I've been mentally abused. Racism, discrimination, lack of self-confidence, lack of self-worth. It really took some time to, first of all, acknowledge that. And that started with therapy, you know, sitting with someone and actually talking about what happened to me. I held in all of these forms of abuse for years, 10, 12 years, not telling a soul. And once I started releasing that in therapy, it felt like it couldn't just stay there. As this beautiful being who's flourishing into her best self, it felt like I needed to do something else with it. And so I started writing. Writing became poetry. Poetry became visual art. And I would write and I would paint. What does racism look like? And I would paint it, you know? And then from there, it became, what does it sound like? And it's really interesting because everything in this film is all original. So the process from the writing and the painting, it turned into sound. And there are 6 different sections of this film. It starts with racism and discrimination. It goes to being silenced and having no voice. It then goes to mental abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. And while it's also dark, I had to find a 6th section, which is joy. How did I find myself? How did I come out of that darkness? And so I started in a studio with an audio engineer, and whatever those topics sounded like, I put it into real-time life. You know, what does sexual abuse sound like? And you know, I'd be working with him and we'd be creating, and even me, I've I can play the piano. So sometimes it's me on the piano, like it sounds like this, and he'd record it. And sometimes it would be like, what does it sound like with my voice? And we'd record that. And so at some point I had an entire soundtrack, and that was so beautiful. And while it was exciting being in that studio and creating all of these different sounds, there were moments that were really triggering, you know, sitting with, okay, what does sexual abuse really sound like? And feeling that feeling and feeling that emotion felt very challenging. And so while there was the release, there was also the acknowledgement kind of happening at the same time. And once that was all completed, naturally, that sound turned into movement. And that was really the birth of the film. Yeah.
I like that you mentioned how the creative process itself really just resonated, even if it was challenging. So would you say that in some way that process to make the film was a form of healing for you, especially because you started saying how therapy was kind of like the turning point of you acknowledging what you went through? Would you say that from coming with that form of healing, creating this movie was just another way as a healing outlet, basically?
I would say absolutely. For me, on my healing journey, the more that you can acknowledge, the more that you can understand, for me, is feeling like I'm safer. And so there's a whole journey of creating this film has absolutely been healing for me, because now I can talk about it. I've been sexually abused. I've been physically abused. You know, if people want details, I can share the details, and I don't have to necessarily get to that point of being triggered because I'm comfortable with it. There was a point where there was that self-judgment. How is someone gonna look at me and see me knowing that I've been sexually abused? And oh my gosh, someone's almost killed me. What would the world think of me? I love myself. I love myself so much. I've put in so much work to accept all of me. So if people don't want to like me or accept me with the different forms of abuse I've been through, I'm okay with that, you know? And so that was a journey within itself, being okay with not worrying about the judgment of other people, because I'll talk for the Black community, we don't talk about forms of abuse like that. Saying the word sexually abused is very taboo. It happens so much that so many people just suppress it. So, you know, there was no way I felt comfortable to talk about it when I was younger or when it happened. And I wasn't actually a little girl when it happened. I was in university. So I was grown enough. And even within that, there was that shame, you know? So absolutely, this film has been healing for me, but more so, and the bigger reason why I went through this triggering movie was to help others. Because there's so many other people who've been through forms of abuse that have suppressed that. And while I've been working on this movie, dancers, choreographers, anybody that's been a part of it has shared something with me that they've been suppressing themselves. And as I've been doing like the behind the scenes and posting on Instagram, the amount of DMs that I've gotten and people messaging me and saying, thank you, can I please share something with you? I've been abused. And I don't think I can tell anybody else, but seeing what you're doing has made me feel like, wow, it's not just me. And that, to me, that was the point of this film, to help others. You know, while I'm working through my own, it was really, I'm putting myself out there. I'm okay if I'm gonna get shamed and if people are looking at me differently. I'm helping others. And that's been the biggest thing for me, the biggest motivation, really.
Thank you so much for sharing that part, because I think it's a very powerful aspect of this movie, is how you literally put vulnerability on screen.
Yes.
And what you mentioned around the shame of feeling like there's this taboo and shame. It's very fascinating in some way, but also the courage that was required for you to do that is something to respect. To echo on like a part that you mentioned was behind the scenes and the people involved in this movie, because you were not just the only person on screen. Would you like to share a bit more about how you chose the different characters in the movie? What's your connection with them?
I did one section at a time, and it was very intentional, the team that I chose for each section. And to be honest with you, I didn't know in advance for some of them. And others I knew for sure I would like this person on my team. So what I did was I held auditions for every section and took it from there. For each section, it brought about a different energy. Some people I knew for sure, and some people I had no idea. So with the audition process, it brought in different dancers that maybe I wasn't unaware of before that. But also with some of the choreography, I had co-choreographers. And I said, you know, at the beginning, Arsenio was somebody who really pushed my boundaries with dance. And his style, I think, matches my body and my movement beautifully. So I actually had Arsenio on set for a few of the different scenes, and we co-created some of the choreography together. I mean, I had a team of over 20 people for this beautiful film. Somebody else that I would like to mention right now is Kayanne Ward. You know, she's this fantastic dance hall individual that understands dance hall in just this beautiful light. And for some reason, I knew that she would be the person I was going to use for sexual abuse. Because to me, dance hall is not just about sex. And that's something I'm very passionate. I love Jamaica. Jamaica's my background. I resonate with Jamaica. And when I see dance hall, it's not about sex to me. It's about something deeper. It's about culture. It's about all of these different things. And the way that you move your body in dance hall, to me, is just beautiful. Not sexy. It can be sexy, but there's a beauty to it. And knowing that she's the guru, in my opinion, for dance hall in Toronto, I knew that I could use her to be that safe person, to be that safe space to release sexual energy. And sexual abuse was a really interesting scene to create because, like I mentioned, you know, so many people have blocks that maybe they're unaware of. And so to be able to really have this story come to life, you know, dancers are actors, right? But if there's a block, you're not going to be able to act the way, and you're not going to be able to move the way that you're supposed to move if there's kind of that block. So Kayanne really worked as a emotional coach, a sensual coach, to allow movement and emotion to flow. And so a lot of the choreography in sexual abuse, it stemmed from sitting down and being able to touch the partner and look in the eyes of the partner and move with the partner. It started with being comfortable with each other so that the movement could really come to life. So yeah, it was a really interesting process, and it really took a lot of time. I was very intentional with individuals on my team. If I knew that a section would be a little bit too heavy, I had emotional support coaches on set. It was very integral for me to ensure that every dancer, every assistant, every videographer felt safe. Because I know what it's like to not feel safe. So if a section was supposed to take 2 months to create, but needed a third month, I would find the funds to extend rehearsals because, hey, if this person's not able to move the way that we need them to move, there must be a mental blockage. So it wasn't a rush. You know, this movie took time. This movie, you know, just had so much intention to keep everybody on set really safe. And I feel really, really proud. And to be frank with you, there was so much growth on my end creating this film. I don't necessarily see myself as a patient person, but I was able to see myself in such a different light with this movie, and the patience, the love, the care that I had for dancers on set, you know, being able to read energy in a different way. I've grown exponentially from creating this film. You know, I went into this film as an amazing dancer, you know, but to come out of this film as a choreographer, a director, someone who understands energy, someone who is so patient and will give people time. You know, a rehearsal is not just about, hey, come in, let's go. It's, how do you feel? You know, I was able to incorporate this entire holistic method of creating this film, and probably why it took so long. I thought it was going to be done at first, you know, within a year or 2 years. And I was like, get out of here. You know, each section took so much time and so much love and so much patience that it built me in a completely different way. And if that's one thing the movie did, it's made me love myself so much more, to see different traits that have been built.
I think we are gonna just wrap up with the movie itself, getting into the juice of the release of it. Okay. So can you just tell us a little bit about the movie release? Absolutely. When is it? Where? How can we know about it?
Okay, so it's going to be Thursday, May 29th. Mm-hmm. It's going to be at 7 o'clock. Doors open at 7. Screening starts at 8. It's going to be at the Royal Theatre. That's by College and Bathurst area. And there's tickets on Eventbrite. You can go to my website, which is www.girlpowered.com. Mm-hmm. And there is a page on Finding Me, my movie. So all of the information's there. People can read more information about the movie there. And I'm just really excited.
What's next after this? Because I mean, this is definitely like a milestone moment in your career. Yes. Do you have any other projects on the go right now? Something that you want to share with us?
For right now, my focus is on the movie. It's going to stay on the release of the film. I absolutely will be doing this film live at some point. So that dancing, the beautifulness that everyone will see on May 29th. It's my goal and intention to partner with a dance presenting organization, maybe like Dance Immersion perhaps, to partner with me where I can create this show and do it live. Maybe start with one section and see how that feels, so that people can see me dancing live and my dancers dancing live. Also, once my screening is complete, I absolutely will be submitting my film into different film festivals. Mm-hmm. So I've got so many different avenues that it can and will take. This is just the start of something so big and so beautiful. It feels like everything that I'm doing is aligned. It's where I'm supposed to be. I have good energy. I'm content. And my heart just feels really beautiful.
Mm. Thank you so much for your time today, Brittnee. That was really special to hear more about all aspects of your life, personal and professional. Thank you so much for your time. And don't forget to get your ticket for
Finding Me! Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I really
appreciate it. And for you to take the time to hear my story and to share my story. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm very glad that I was able to hold that space for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That was really great.